Hello, welcome, and good evening. Good evening. Lovely to be here with each of you. It's nice to be back. I had a little break, and it's nice to be back. Nice to be back. So before we get into the teachings, just a couple of announcements. I will be at the Shivananda ashram in the Bahamas at the end of the month here, March 30th, 2026, through April 2nd for the Spiritual Awakening Symposium, along with Miranda McPherson and Mary Reed. And so if you can make it, I'd love to see you out there in the islands. And next on the list is we have our summer retreat at Kripalu. It's July 12th through the 17th. And in the meantime, I'll get to work and booking some more online retreats. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. So one of the things I wanted to speak about tonight was about this experience of being awake. And when I speak about being awake, I'm speaking about us stepping out of the personality, out of our old human conditioning, and stepping into a greater view, a greater perspective. And one of the most beautiful ways I've heard anyone speak about spiritual awakening is in this experience of knowing oneself, experiencing oneself as the very eyes and ears of God. And in order for us to step into this, to know this, of course we have to let go of the smaller sense of self, the old human personality that, for better or worse, we've dragged around with us, for most of our life, living through this lens of personality. And the lens of personality, sometimes it can be really beautiful. If you just fell in love, if you had some great luck or fortune, and maybe you're on vacation or this and that. And so the personality at different times of our journey can be something quite wonderful. We might say, well, why would I want to let go of that? Well, because most of the time the personality is a lens through which we suffer greatly. And we suffer greatly not because there's anything wrong with the personality, but simply because its wiring tends to be a wiring of fear, a wiring of comparison. I'm sure, most everyone here, perhaps even this day, has noticed their ego, the personality self, comparing themselves to their neighbor, to their brother, to their sister, to someone on TV, someone on the internet, someone we don't even know. And often with these comparisons, we find that our ego always finds a way that we either measure up, short, we come up in some form of lack, or if we have more of a narcissistic tendency, we think of ourselves as the best. But either of these swings, whether it's the best or the worst, will just create suffering. Just create suffering. And this last week, one of the beautiful things that I've been doing is spending a lot of time in the desert. And so I live here on the edge of the desert, and there's always this open invitation. I just hear the desert just calling me, come, come, and let me gobble you up in this immense silence, this immense stillness. And often I go into the desert alone, not always, but often. And, if you're out there in the desert, there's no one to talk to. Normally we're just going for a walk of some sort in the desert. Sometimes I'll go climbing or this or that. But in the desert is this profound silence. And as you let go of the personality, you begin to feel as if you are the silence. You begin to feel as if you are the eyes, the ears of the divine. Of the divine. And as we let go of that which is lesser, we start to open into this grand universal experience. And so I'm going to invite us right now, if we haven't already, just to shut down our eyes and to begin just by taking some deep, full breaths. And right away, just beginning to notice, where is your consciousness? Where is awareness? Is it fixated on something human, something personal? Is it fixated on pain, some inner struggle? Or is awareness open and empty, vast and wide? And you may begin to notice that if awareness is fixated on your human self, your human life, that your mind is actually quite loud, perhaps even complaining or grasping or has some sense of running. And so let's just take a couple minutes here and just inviting the body to be still. The mind to be empty. And I invite you to feel into the silence, which is always already here. Silence being this immense space and even if you have a noisy environment, I invite you to notice, to acknowledge that silence is the very space out of which all of life arises. The very space out of which the sound, the vibration of my voice arises. And so I ask you, what happens as you begin to open to this silence and let go into this immense field of being? And even beginning to wake up to this recognition that you are this field. The very fabric of your mind, of your consciousness, is radiant stillness. A radiant silence. Coming to recognize that you have a choice to be the personality self, the story, the age, the gender, or to be this immensity of being. And just noticing, well, what is that like? What is that like for you? You being the eyes and the ears of the divine. As you see yourself in this expansive way, well, consciousness tends to expand. But if you see yourself through the eyes of ego, the eyes of personality, one of the programs of ego, like comparison, you'll find your view being like an aperture on a camera. And becoming more and more narrow. And because we're here at Satsang, we are here because we want to be free. And so we choose to open the aperture all the way, allowing ourselves to experience this universal nature. Vast, spacious, radiant. And together, as we open to this immense peace, this spaciousness, you also might simultaneously notice a sense of power waking up in the root, in the hara, in the spine. And so our view is vast and open. And as we open, we notice this rush of energy, this power, this radiance awakening. And it can feel as if this energy is waking up from the earth and coming up through your feet, your pelvis, your hara, your central channel. And so here we are, knowing ourselves as the sky and knowing ourselves as the strength, the solidity, the power of the earth. Of life itself. Life awakening to life. God, seeing herself in all things through the lens of the human form. Yes, and so breathing, feeling, softening, experiencing yourself as a sense organ of the divine. Life, experiencing life. And at any point, if you find any sense of contraction throughout the system, I would invite you just to ask, well, what happens when I soften there? What happens when I melt? What happens when I surrender? The ego and all its games of separation. What happens? In the direct experience of being. And so I'm going to invite us, to gently open our eyes again if you haven't already, and I'm going to welcome you to Satsang. And I invite you to stay with your direct experience. And I'm going to invite us to take this on as a practice to play with. being a sense organ of the divine, being the eyes and the ears of God, being God, experiencing God. And just playing with this, just noticing, well, what is it like? And again, we all know what it's like to be the ego self, to be the character. We all know what that's like. And in order to step into this greater universal self, it requires a total surrender of all those little thoughts, those complaints, those points of division, those points of stress, those points of judgment or gossip, or fighting with life. And just allowing oneself to be totally open. I had this really beautiful experience this morning. It's been, downright hot here in Colorado, and normally it's still snowing this time of year, but anyways, so I was getting up early, meditating outside, and being outside and being open, being the eyes and the ears of God. And now, it being spring, you hear all these songbirds, just chirping, singing little hymns to the divine. And being the one who's awake to hear this. And when you do this, it really awakens the heart. You start to feel this quality of supreme innocence. And so in my backyard, I live on just like a little mesa. For those of you who don't know, it's like a little, mesa is like a table, so like a little cliff, overlooking the town of Durango on one side and the big valley with mountains on the other, and then mountains all around. Mountains all around, whatever way you look. But anyway, so looking out at the sky and becoming the sky. Looking out at the mountain and becoming the mountain. Hearing the sound of the birds and being the birds. Being not Craig, not this one, but being all things simultaneously. And it's such a wonderful practice to open in this universal way. Instead of just being me, I want, I need, what are my thoughts, what's my commentary on life. We surrender all that. And we simply allow ourselves to be this great immensity of being. And so I'm going to invite us just to play with this as a practice, being the eyes and the ears of God. So you don't have to be meditating. In fact, I can tell you this, that, it being hot, I've been getting out on my dirt bike a lot and just racing my motorcycle around and being totally empty. Being totally empty. Racing my motorcycle really fast, far too fast. And that's what the voice of the personality will say. The ego will say, you're going too fast. And that there's a time and a place for an ego, of course. It keeps you alive. But we can be riding a motorcycle, riding a horse, driving our car, going for a walk, and allowing oneself to be completely empty. I can tell you this, there's something really exquisite about being on a dirt bike and opening the throttle, just like full throttle all the way open, Got that thing maxed out. The wind blowing in your hair. And being the eyes and the ears of God. It's like God flying through the space of God. One of my most favorite things to do is just to be completely empty. And to go super fast. That's me. A lot of spiritual people tend to walk extra slow like zombies. And I've done that too a bunch. Just walking meditation, Thich Nhat Hanh style. Painfully slow. Feeling the blades of grass underneath your feet with each step. And being the sense organ of the divine. And so I'm going to invite us to play with this. So more and more as, we head in the direction of summertime and being outside. It's a wonderful way to practice. If you go on a walk with your dog, being the sky. Feeling the birds floating within the space of you. And simultaneously being the birds, being the sound of the song, being the feeling of flight, being vast, empty, and spacious. And so, I'm going to invite you all to let me know how it goes. Okay. And so I'm going to switch gears a little bit here, and I have a question that was sent in, so let me pull that up. That's a beautiful question from my dear friend Don in Indianapolis. Good to see you, Don. Good to see you. Hi, Craig. I was watching a documentary about the Ethiopian Bible and having more chapters about Jesus after his resurrection, teaching that God in the heart, not through institutions like the Romans who deliberately left out the important teachings. Yeah, that can happen. And it got me thinking more. Yeah. And if you just do a little searching, online or at the Amazon bookstore or whatever it is, you'll find that there's all kinds of gospels that didn't make it into the normal Roman Catholic Bible. And I've always found it just incredible to read these Gospels and just to study them, to see another perspective. And even if you go to different churches, you'll find that, some churches have a lot of heart and some don't at all. Some don't at all. Some have very little heart. Some have huge hearts. In fact, I was down in Santa Fe and visited this big old cathedral in the town square in Santa Fe. And Santa Fe is one of the oldest cities in the United States, and it just has a beautiful church. And so if you're down there, I encourage you to visit because it's full of love. And it's a church that has all this divine mother energy, all this saintly energy, and has big statue out front of the first Native American woman who was canonized a saint. And it's just absolutely beautiful. So let's get to Don's question. Not sure what the feeling or knowing is called when the heart feels hollow, like it's not connected to spirit, which can feel like I'm walking dead, compared to the feeling of walking in the spirit that comes by cultivating and leading into God. It's very real. And what methods can I do to keep tethered to the spirit and not forget and be swept away from the shore, so to speak? Yeah, now Don, I'll say this. You and I have spoken a lot about the heart. And the method I'm going to give you, and so basically the question is, what do I do if I feel a sense of being disassociated from my heart chakra? Like, what do I do? Now, I'm going to give you a positive teaching, but then I'm going to give you a more powerful, what I'll call a negative teaching. And I don't like to speak in terms of positives and negatives, but I'm just going to do it anyway. So the positive teaching is we chant the name of God. We go to holy places. We make a pilgrimage. We show up on retreat. And so if my heart ever feels dry, which is actually quite rare, but if it does, so I'm going to go on a holy pilgrimage of some sort. So we have a beautiful monastery out here where I live. It's out actually in the middle of the desert. It's called Christ in the Desert. And so I might go to a place like this, where there's monks and there's chanting all day long. And I'm going to be meditating and chanting the name of God all day long. All day long. Now, if we don't live near Christ in the desert, there's many of us who live in a city, who have yoga studios. And at yoga studios, the teaching or the invitation would be to go to kirtan. Kirtan is when, it's often hosted on a Friday night, sometimes once a month, sometimes every week, depending on how vibrant the yoga sangha is there. And they're singing and chanting. There's these holy bhajans where we're chanting the name of God. And so we go there and we chant with community. We meet new friends and we sing the praises of God. We call upon the glory of God. And often this will do the trick. Often this will begin to awaken our heart. So retreats, pilgrimages, time in silence. Hell, if any of us did like a 90-minute yoga practice, oftentimes you'll find, oh my gosh, not only is my heart, but my whole body feels open and radiating with love. Now, for many of us, and this tends to be a disease with two classes of people, and I'm just making a generalization here. If we've been overly traumatized, we tend to disassociate from our heart. If we've been, I'm going to make three classes. Overly traumatized. Man, I'm losing them all already. If we've been overly traumatized, if we're a super intellectual, we just haven't spent much time in our heart. If we've been neglected by mom and dad, so that's poor parenting. And if we had parents who didn't teach us that we are of the utmost value. And so this is a common thing that our parents were busy, they were stressed, they were going through a divorce, they were alcoholics, they had something going on. And they didn't look at you and light up and smile and say, wow, here's my beautiful son, here's my beautiful daughter. If they looked at you like you were a pain in the butt. Oftentimes we get this imprint that our presence, our heart, is not of value. I can say this, like the imprint I got as a kid was, you're valuable if you are working. So when I was a kid, I was just like always working, staying busy. Or, I was out in the woods, just staying away from my parents, but it's just like, if you're busy, you're of value. If you're not busy, if you're not working, you're not doing yard work or stacking wood or whatever it is, or changing the oil in the car, the truck, the lawnmower, the chainsaw, whatever it was. A chainsaw, you don't change the oil, you just clean the thing. But anyways, if you're not working, you're not of value. And so we get these messages when we're young often that we're not of value. Sometimes we get the message later on in life is we experience heartbreak of some sort, heartbreak or neglect. Maybe we fall in love with a narcissist and it ends terribly, a situation like this. And at some point we make this decision, it's an unconscious decision, to leave the heart. And so the next teaching I'm going to give you is we need to come back and inhabit our heart. Now the problem for us, if we're in one of those three categories, I think there was three there, is that when we come back to inhabit the heart, our heart feels dead. You even wrote this, like it feels dead, it feels hollow. So I'm going to encourage you to sit in the deadness, to sit in the hollowness and acknowledge all the pain that's there. So the heart is a chakra that is awakened, however you say that, that comes to be awake through being willing to feel. Now the nondual heart specifically requires a willingness to feel that which is good, beautiful, divine. We spoke about that already. Chanting the name of God, opening to God. And that just feels wonderful. If I say, glory be to God in the highest and peace to God's people on earth, I start to feel this wonderful radiance in the heart. If I say, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. O Holy Mother, will you come here and bless us and fill us with love, fill us with happiness and joy. Come into our hearts and uplift us. I start to feel this descent of grace coming into the heart and feeling this holy energy flowing down. And so now we have the heart being flooded with light. But for some of us who have been professionals at avoiding the pain of our heart, or just going into the heart and saying, this thing feels dead. I don't like this. And we go back into our mind and we say, God, maybe I can just kind of float away into spacious emptiness. I talked to a lady just the other day. And she was telling me she could just lay down in the road and just be dead. And I was like, oh my God, like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And she just said it matter-of-factly. And I asked her, like, what's going on? And she said, well, there's this sadness in my heart. And I don't know what it's about. And that was the key there, is there was sadness that she didn't know what it was about. So I invite any of us here, if we want to get to know our heart, we need to see our heart, treat our heart like it is our best friend. And if our best friend comes to us and says, I feel hollow and dead, we're really going to listen to him. Listen to that one. And say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Why do you feel this way? So we begin to investigate and unpack and get to know the hollowness. What is the hollowness about? What is the feeling of deadness about? At what moment did we leave our heart? When was that choice made? And sometimes it was made in an instant. I said this, one of the stupidest things to my spiritual teacher. I had a beautiful girlfriend once. Her name was Susie Cream Cheese. And Susie Cream Cheese broke up with me one day. And I was really sad. And I went to my teacher and he saw I was really sad. And I said, I'll never love again. And he just laughed in my face. He just straight up laughed in my face. I think he slapped me on the back too pretty hard, Just say, you're an idiot, young man. Of course you're going to love again. And you're going to love again because you're going to cry, and you're going to get over this. And then you're going to open your heart then you're going to reconnect. You're going to reconnect to yourself, and you're going to reconnect to the other half of the population. And you're going to love again. You're going to love again. And so when the heart is hollow, often it's a sign that we have lost faith. Faith in ourselves, faith in our heart. And when I drive across the desert, so I drive across the Navajo Nation. The Navajo Nation is this big chunk of land. It spans, it's Colorado, Arizona, Utah, New Mexico. And within it, there's all these, other little tribes, anyways. But when you're driving across Indian territory, you're going to find tremendous poverty. And often you'll see all kinds of abandoned buildings. Sometimes like an old abandoned gas station, or old abandoned barn, or old abandoned, Hogan, or whatever it is. And we don't want our heart to be like an abandoned building. We need to go into that building and either, rebuild it, remodel it, inhabit it. Spend some time there. Bring new life into the heart. And we do this through connecting to things we love. Like having a dog. Like I have these little dogs and I just love them so much. They bring so much love and joy into my life. But if it's not a dog, it's being out in nature, connecting with the trees, connecting with the energy of springtime. And again, these are happy energies that help to awaken the heart chakra. But also we have to be willing to acknowledge there's old pain here. And the heart is one of those things where you can only go so far with positivity. The truth of the heart is the heart is an energy, a center, a power, a force of total inclusivity, of total acceptance, but not cold, dead, dry acceptance. Acceptance that embraces, that touches, that grieves. And so often the quickest way to opening the heart, if we're in pain or if the heart feels hollow, is feeling the deadness, feeling the hollowness. And as you feel that, we should begin to grieve. Like, oh my gosh, I feel so empty and dead here, like this shell that has no feeling of joy. And so we acknowledge that. And we feel the heaviness of it. And as soon as we begin to feel the heaviness of pain, the heart is beginning to awaken again. So the heart has this quality of fearlessness to it. Most people live in like a shallow egoic heart that just wants to feel good. I had a very funny interaction with a Sangha member just about an hour or two ago. And, I pulled up to the store and I saw him walking out. And I said, "Hey, Kyle, do you have some climbing shoes and a harness?" And he said, "No." And I said, "You better get some. I'd like to take you climbing." And he said, "That sounds like fun." And this is where he just missed it. Completely missed it. And so when you hang out with a teacher, this is one of these things that I learned hanging out with my teacher. There was no fun. One time someone asked my teacher about fun, and he about tore their head off. And I can still remember. He said, fun. We're not here to have fun. You can have fun. Fun might happen. It might happen. It probably will happen. It'll happen from time to time. But we're here to wake up. And Kyle, if your teacher asks you to come climbing, it's not about having fun. It's about pushing the limits. It's about stepping beyond what you know yourself to be. And that's what we're doing in the heart chakra. On the surface of the heart is like, I want to have fun. I want to experience things that feel good and pleasurable. And there's nothing wrong with that. I want to be crystal clear. Not against fun. That's not the point here. Not against fun. But we're stepping into something deep, something true. And the spiritual path will challenge us. Challenge us. And Kyle, if you do come climbing, I'll teach you about your heart. You say, about your heart? Like, what is he talking about? My heart. See, the heart grows through facing difficulty, through facing emptiness, through facing the void, through facing the unknown, through facing and embracing the hollow parts. The heart grows and evolves through a willingness to embrace that which we don't want to embrace, through a willingness to feel that which we don't want to feel. And when we open the heart in this way, we begin to discover that the hara starts to open as well, and that this strength comes online. And so for the heart truly to be open, we have to be willing to feel the things that frighten us, the things that seem dead. We have to be Jesus and say, I'm going to bring back the dead. Rise up. Come alive. Stop your grieving. Lady, let me heal your son, your daughter, your child, whatever. Come alive. Come alive. Come alive. And when there's deadness in the heart, this is what we're doing. We're not losing faith in saying, oh, I can't heal. If the heart feels hollow, we say, why is my heart hollow? What is going on here? What is this about? I will not stand for this. People are saying, what does he mean? I won't stand for this. They say, no, I will not stand for this. I will not have a body. I will not have a heart that is not inhabited by me, by what it is that I am. So we come back into the heart. I was at the Battle of the Somme once. The Battle of the Somme was bloody trench warfare places. World War I is just a horrific place. Horrific place. The Germans dug trenches, the French and the British dug trenches. They made machine gun nests. They just slaughtered. Tens and tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of men died at the Battle of the Somme. Now, if you go to the Battle of the Somme today, you'll see that there's still some big craters in the earth. You'll see that there's still some little indentions, where the trenches were. There's still just like some, just little indentions in the fields. But right now, it's these beautiful fields where farmers are growing all kinds of crops and food, feeding Europe. But these beautiful rolling hills. So it's a place that was once a battlefield. And so if our heart has been blown to smithereens, if it's been emptied out, if we've been disassociated, we need to go back into those fields and work those fields. Work them. And if you could imagine, if you were one of those farmers, like still to this day, like they still find unexploded ordnances, unexploded bombs, in those fields. And they're still removing them. But they're farming them. so you have to be brave. You have to go back into that heart and say, I'm going to inhabit this thing. And it's good if you can start again with something positive. If you walk in nature and Don, like a practice I'm going to give you, and we can all take this on. So as we started tonight, we were stepping into being the eyes and the ears of God, and it had a real transcendent feeling of emptiness and open to spaciousness. This is more of a third eye awakening. As Don brought this question forward, we're talking about imagining two eyes on your chest, two eyes on your heart, and walking out into the world, looking through the lens of the heart and feeling the energies of spring, the energies of innocence, the energies of little birdies chirping, little birdies floating through space and chirping. I had this wonderful morning. So I got up real early and meditated, like I do every morning. And, my wife, she came out and she started working in the garden. And the day before yesterday, I got out the tiller and created a whole nother big garden in the backyard. And so she was kind of just working the soil. And right along the fence, came 2 mama deer and, 3 young deer just like walking along. And they were beginning to shed their winter coats, so they were looking extra scruffy and extra cute, and just feeling their innocence, being one with and unified with their innocence. Just absolutely beautiful. And so this is what it's like when you look through the lens of the heart. You see innocence. You see beauty. And even just seeing the sun come up, above, there's this ridge across from me. So the sun will come up over this ridge. It's called Raider Ridge. And then it starts to shine across on Missionary Ridge. That's a different mountain. And you'll start to see the sun creeping up, along the mountain. And so when we see through the lens of the heart, you start to see and feel, experience beauty everywhere. Everywhere. And if you see or feel any heartache, you'll cry. You'll cry. Like sometimes I'll go to the store and you'll see someone like at the store, they'll be like yelling at their kid, maybe slapping their kid, beating their kid, like it's crazy the way humans treat each other. But, sometimes you go to the store and you see like a parent who, they obviously need some training in how to be a parent, but they're beating their kid publicly. I'm laughing. I shouldn't laugh, but I laugh because I was beat, so that's why I'm laughing. But you see someone do that to a kid and your heart breaks, and I'll cry. Literally, like right there, I'll be in, the store, and there'll be tears just rolling down my cheeks. And I'll be busy praying for that poor mother and the poor child. For that mother to open her heart, for her to come to know love. And so when the heart is open, if the heart is going to be open, it's open through one way, and that's the way through feeling, through a willingness to feel in an inclusive contextual reality. The heart doesn't say, oh, I'm only going to open to the beauty of the sun and the chirping bird and the little fawns and the does and this and that. No, we open to the children in Iran that are being bombed. And we feel their pain. We open to the children in Dubai or the children in Israel or wherever it is that are being bombed. And we feel their pain. So disassociation, like the way we get to having a hollow heart, is through an unconsciousness within us that says, I don't want to feel. This is too much. This is too much. I saw this actually yesterday. My wife was hungry. We were working real hard in the garden. I was working this giant rototiller, and normally we're freaks, so we cook every single meal we have. But I said, hey, let's go out and I'll get you a little something to eat. Let's go and grab something real quick. I had to grab some fence posts from the farm store. So anyways, and sometimes, when you're getting ready to pay, at the checkout, at the deli or whatever, they'll have like a picture of, some dogs that are suffering. In this case, it was like an old man. He had like 8 different types of cancer, and he had all these tubes in his nose, and there's a picture of his face and his little bucket asking people to put money in it. And I looked at this guy's face, and it was just like, oh my gosh, it was just such suffering. And I looked at him, and I noticed like right away I looked away. Like I didn't want to see it. I just wanted to hurry up, get something to eat. I wanted to get in and out of there. But I stopped myself. I was like, no, I'm just going to look at this poor boy. Looking right into his eyes. Feeling his pain. Feeling his suffering. Calling forth the grace of God to be with his soul. And not turning away. Not turning away. And then finally, I got out the wallet and stuffed some money in there too. But the stuff in the money in part, like that was the last thing. The open heart is the willingness to look. And if you ever want to know who has this quality, nurses have this quality. Mothers have this quality. A good father will have this quality. The willingness to see pain, to hear it, and to not turn away. I think anyone who's a nurse, like Jennifer will give you the gold ribbon for tonight, but when I give you like a trophy, a star, the golden ticket just to go immediately into heaven, like right away, skip all the other space, just go right there. No purgatory, none of that. But a nurse is a courageous individual who says, yeah, I'll go and take care of those suffering. And I go there with an open heart. With an open heart. I mean, that's just what a nurse is an open heart. It's another word for an open heart. It's a willingness to be with difficulty. To be with difficulty. And so if there's a practice here for the heart, again, it's the willingness to feel. In the spiritual context, we talk about prayer and communicating with God, having a relationship with God, making God your best friend. Again, like these are all beautiful things. But the day-to-day, the bread and butter, the practicality of having an open heart just comes down to one thing, a willingness to be open and to feel everything without turning away. Without turning away. I had another moment where I could have turned away, but I didn't. So I was at the big cathedral down there in Santa Fe. And we were actually getting ready to leave. We spent about an hour just hanging out in the church, meditating, and just looking at all the different icons and stained glass and statues and everything. And we were on our way out the door, and they had a little garden outside, and they had the Stations of the Cross. And if you hang out at churches, you'll notice that you'll be hanging out with a lot of the elderly. It's just a thing. It's just a thing. If you're hanging out at churches, my wife says this. She's like, I don't want to be friends with all these old people because they're just going to die on me. And I'm like, sweetheart, look, we're just going to be friends with whoever's here. Like, that's just life, But she's like, but they're going to die, So anyways, so we met the elderly in Santa Fe. And what were they doing? They're hanging out at the Catholic Church. And they were going to do the Stations of the Cross. And for those of you who don't know what the Stations of the Cross are, it is, it's the stages of Jesus before he's nailed to the cross. It includes him being nailed to the cross, but it's just like the run up to being nailed to the cross. It is a horrific ritual that Catholics do, but again, if I'm at any holy site and there's some kind of thing going on, I'm going to be a part of it. That's just who I am. I don't care if it's, the Buddhists, the Krishnas, the whoever, the Muslims. I'm going to do the thing. And so you read through the Stations of the Cross and you walk along it. There's all these statues, and the statues are just brutal statues of Jesus, basically being whipped, falling down, being stripped naked, being nailed up to the cross, him trying to carry the cross, being nailed to the cross, him falling down. All of it, it's graphic, it's horrific, but so here I am just like crying my eyes out in Santa Fe, on this hot sunny day, and my younger daughter, she's there, and she's like, oh my God, like this is so horrific. But to hear the pain, to hear the suffering of the Christ takes tremendous courage. It'd be easy just to be like, nope, that's too much. I don't want to hear it. This is insane. This is graphic. It's gory. It's a horror. I don't want anything to do with it. That's what most people would say. Any normal human being's like, nope, count me out on that one. Like, I'm not taking part. But, here's me and my wife, and then, 4 other people who are 86, And so, anyways, we're doing the Stages of the Cross, and, there's, each person has like a reading that they have to do. It's almost like a play, but with some prayers mixed in and this and that. But the point being is, to know Jesus. And this is what the heart does. The heart knows life, knows another, experiences oneness through joining with the thing. We know a tree by joining our consciousness with the consciousness of the tree. We join our consciousness with the consciousness of the sky. And this is how we know. And we know through oneness, through unity, through stepping into. And so the point of the Stations of the Cross is to know the heart of Jesus, to know the suffering that he went through, and the choice that he made to continue to open. To continue to open. And so right now we're in Lent. We got a couple more weeks and we'll have Easter. And then Easter's a holy celebration where everything becomes really sweet and positive in the Catholic Church again. But when we're in Lent, you do the Stations of the Cross and you take on the suffering. You feel the suffering. You're not afraid of it. And so for the heart to truly open, It requires tremendous courage. And this is where the hara starts to come online. The willingness to be with something that doesn't feel good. And again, let me just circle back to Don's question and then we'll get to Ryan. The willingness to sit in the hollowness and just to feel the hollowness, to sit in deadness and to feel the deadness, to become intimate with the deadness. And hopefully, I just say this hopefully, that as you start to open to deadness, you begin to feel, oh, there's sadness in here. There's some heartache or there's some quality of despair. And through this willingness to continue to open, and this is a hara energy now, where we're continuing to choose to open and to feel this great strength and this courage and this aliveness, this unification comes online and the heart truly begins to awaken. And this is really what the resurrection is. And so, Don, I'm going to encourage you to play with this. It's all about the doorway of feeling. So the tantra of the heart is the willingness to feel everything. We can feel that which resonates with our heart, that's which lights us up. But we also want to make sure we feel that which we've ignored, that which we've denied. And sometimes, when you really come into the heart, you can find that there's parts of you that may be doing to yourself what your father, what your mother did. If they ignored you, if they ignored your heart, you might notice, oh, I have that same tendency just to look at my heart and say, oh, there's nothing there. Nothing there. And so I'm going to move back up into my head. But as good yogis, we're not going to do that. We're going to come into the heart. We're going to stay in the heart. We're going to inhabit the heart. We're going to choose to live from the heart. For how long? Forever. 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 There's never a reason to leave the heart. Never. That's why we're having World War III on planet Earth right now. Is because some confused men in power chose to leave their heart. Chose to leave the heart. That's why our world doesn't honor the beauty of the earth. That's why humanity doesn't honor the beauty of the earth. Because humanity's left the heart. That's why there's more slaves now on planet Earth than there's ever been. It's because humanity has left the heart. And if we want this world to change, we have to inhabit the heart fully and completely. Okay. Beautiful question. Thank you so much, Don. All right, let's hear from Ryan.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Ryan. Good to see you.
Good to see you. I guess I'm trying to apply your satsang to kind of what I experienced this weekend, and I just noticed is there'll be things that I feel like my heart is really open around, but they won't be the complete truth, and I'll be in situations where I see I'm trying to it's I can see how my nervous system is responding to tribalism and trying to put myself in higher positions in the pecking order or get defensive and it's really not fun to see those things in myself, because it's just wow, that's really deeply defensive, and I can see how it's just it makes it hard to stay. It makes it hard for other people to feel I'm open to them, because it's I'm trying to fight to position myself in some eternally safe position or something like that. I don't know if I'm doing a good job of explaining.
No, you're doing a great job of explaining. Yeah, I can tell you this. I've hung out with a lot of spiritual teachers, and they do that same game. And here I am, I'm like, gosh, you guys are supposed to be these enlightened yogis, yoginis, goddesses, Buddhas, whatever. And they'll show up and start flexing and playing that same game as well. And, just from a psychological perspective, I ask, well, why does anyone play those games? Well, it's because we're scared. It's because we're scared. I mean, I've certainly played these games many times in the past. And often it has to do with two things, like we're either scared or we're not comfortable within our own skin, within our own sense of self, which again, that's just another form of fear. And so we do these things, like we've been given this body, and this body, it's a mammal, but it's a tribal mammal, and it plays pecking order games, and it flexes, or it hides, or it manipulates, and it does all these little dances. And I mean, anywhere you go, and again, like I was shocked when I saw this happening, from, I'll just say this. There were a lot of teachers who I once really admired. And then I hung out with them personally and I saw them playing these games. I'm like, oh geez, okay. They're just good at talking a big talk, but they're still playing these games. I'm like, this is sick. It's kind of disgusting, but also it's really human. And it's understandable. And it just points out the fact that there's some fear here. So if you ask your body, your humanity, so let's not make you wrong in any way. Let's just acknowledge we've all done this. Some of us have done this today, if we've played these games. Some people do this with their partner, their lover, we do this with our children, our parents, we do this with our brothers and sisters. But I'm going to invite you to ask, just like, what is it within you that doesn't feel safe just to be you?
Well, this weekend, the situation I was thinking about, it was really about race and being a mixed race girl in a mixed white and black space, and feeling all of the emotions of that, and showing up with the white kind of queer presenting guy who's and just feeling how people were reading me and my body, and where I was in the community thing, and feeling if I'm with him, am I seating a black card or something like that? And then other things that was up was I kind of started seeing this guy, and I'm feeling concerns and insecurities because he has a 4-year-old son, and he has low visual ability, and he's going blind, and so I'm just kind of
the son or the adult?
The adult
isn't seeing. He's having trouble with his vision.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so what was your thought around that?
Well, I guess it's just kind of I'm asking myself questions wow, there's a lot of love and beauty here, but I had this other idea of what I thought was the truth. And generally I'm pretty good at knowing when a go signal is this is the total truth, we're in this, whatever, which I don't feel in this situation, but I also feel there's a lot of content here for me to learn, and I'm also opening in these other ways, and I guess I just don't, it's I don't know, there's a deeper insecurity of seeking perfection, or seeking the right me to navigate this human thing perfectly, and there's anger.
Well, let's just acknowledge that we are not going to find perfection in human form. We're not going to find it. We will not achieve it. We're not going to manifest it. There's not going to be perfection. Like that's just like, we need to just fully acknowledge that. And we need to pop that egoic bubble. There's going to be no perfection. But, if you're being called to something, and I'm not sure you are, but I want you to look at that. Like if you're being called to something, if I'm called to something, I'll go and I'll investigate it. Doesn't mean I need to get married to the person, forever. But, I get called to things, and that's the truth. But the truth just means I listen to that mystery, and I go into that call and I see, okay, like, well, what's here? And I want to be clear. I don't say what's here for me, because, that's kind of ego-based. It's just like, what's here, God? Like, what do you got going on here, God? Like, what is it you're wanting me to see, to grow, to learn, to evolve? Do you need me to show up in a certain way for someone or something? Like, there's something here in this mystery. And I'm going to spend a little time, and I'm going to investigate this. I'm going to be curious. And curious is different than being afraid. If we're being afraid, especially in relationship, it's normally because, there's some kind of dance with attachment. Am I supposed to attach? Am I not supposed to attach? Is this for me? Are they for me? Do they like me? Do I like them? But just to be open and see, okay, like, well, what's this about? Like, God has brought this into my life. Okay, and sometimes I find, I find this a lot, that God will bring me into a situation for me to be of some type of service. And it's like, okay, all right, okay, that's what I'm doing. Some type of service in this situation. Beautiful. Beautiful. Other times, I'm supposed to learn something. The other person's supposed to learn something. We're supposed to learn something together. There's some insecurity that's wanting to be worked out. It sounds like that's what's happening in you. And so we look at that. We say, okay, well, can I be at peace in this situation? It's always a great question. Like, can I be at peace here? Can I be in truth here? Can I be in a sense of love here? And these are great questions, yes, but without wanting the other person to be perfect, wanting them to be a certain way, without going into the future and thinking it needs to end or develop into something. But can I just be in peace? Can I be in truth? Can I be in love? And if there's insecurity, it's like, okay, can I be with that? Can I be with the insecurity? And try to relax, try to open. See if I can find some ground. Some ground. And so does any of that resonate with you?
Yeah, a lot of it does. I think the thing that I'm most insecure about is because I don't have that normal intuition of just like, oh, like, this is an all systems go thing, like that kind of like very clear clarity that I often get when I'm entering something. But I'm wondering if like, oh, like, am I deluding myself because I've been like in a lot of ways really isolated and this is good for me in certain ways? And I'm like, is that like, maybe it's because I'm afraid of like hurting him more because I have a different perspective of like how like love and relationships are, like, and like, am I being selfish, I guess, is the question that I'm asking myself. I'm like, maybe I should not do this.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this, that in regard, like if we're talking strictly romantic relationship, like the way I operate is if I get a big yes, I go forward. Mm-hmm. If there's anything less than a big yes, it's going to be trouble. Mm-hmm. And that's just something I've just noticed just throughout my life. Now, I'm not a dater. I don't go on dates. I mean, of course, I'm married, so that's irrelevant. But I've never been a dater. I've always been, if I get 100% yes, like I'm jumping in with both feet right away. And that's how I operate. And anytime I've seen people try to, do this in-between kind of thing, if there's the intention that this is romance, it's probably going to end in a messy way. But if we opened it up, and if it wasn't just all about romance, if it was, I'm isolated, I could use some friends, I could use some more community, I just want to connect with some people, well, then it's a whole different thing. Because I've known all kinds of people. It's like maybe we kind of go on a couple dates and we realize, oh, we're just better friends, and we just become friends, and then you meet their friends, and then you're opening up to a whole new friend group, and now you have 10 or 15 new friends, and you're going to parties or cookouts and this and that, and it's really good for you. So we need to allow for some of that as well. So it sounds like there's probably a lot of competing variables within you, and we need to get crystal clear. So we're going to hurt the guy if it's like this is 100% a date, and and it gets into that weird territory where we're just not into each other, we're not sure, someone's going to get hurt, and it's like, okay, now it's a mess. But if it's really open in the sense that we could date, or we're just getting to know each other, maybe we're friends, I need to meet some new people, I'd like to have some new friends. It's like, hell, that could be a thing. I've met so many people. I can tell you this. I haven't gone on many dates in my life, but I've gone on, things where I just hung out with a girl, and then, went back to her house, and then there's like 10 people at the house because, I always hung out with hippies, and that's how hippies live. And then all of a sudden you're hanging out with 10 people, and you're at this backyard, big bonfire, and you're just having a good old time. And it's like, this is awesome. I'm so glad that I met this girl, and we just had a little talk, and, she took me back to her place, and now I'm at this big party, and oh, here's my new best friend. And it's not even her, and it's like, yes, there's that as a possibility as well. But when we get into that wishy-washiness, and I've seen, I will say this, and this is something I'll add a little caution towards. I've seen a lot of spiritual people try to date someone that they're not into, and they say, this would be good, and I think I'll learn a lot. And they do learn a lot, but the thing they learn is the thing they knew from the beginning. This isn't the relationship for me. This isn't the right person. We're not a good match, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. And I tried to, put a circle in a square hole, and it just didn't work. And now I'm just like, have this angst and frustration, throughout my psyche. And it's like, okay, well, like I'm going to caution against that. But I can't tell you how many spiritual people, or just psychologically, mature, intelligent people say, well, I could use this as an avenue of growth. And I'm just like, oh, geez. And I've worked with some couples, who tried to play that card for a couple years too many, where they're just trying to grow together. And it's like, oh my Lord. Now, let's fall in love, and that should be simple. And if we're going to stay in love, we're going to grow together. And that's, that tends to be, something that works. But if we're just trying to make it work from the beginning, it's probably going to be a big mess. Unless you, again, I hope this doesn't sound silly, just take it right into the friend zone and just be like, yeah, let's just be friends and let's be cool, and because that's always a possibility. Yeah. Ryan, so good to see you. But again, I want everyone to look at that, just that question of like, when you're showing up in relationship, can you be honest, and can you admit, oh, I got some pecking order things going on here. I got some little power struggles. I got some flexing energy. And of course, as beings who are waking up, we're going to surrender all that. And just connect through a space of love. You loving you being yourself fully. So that's you loving yourself fully. You giving yourself permission to be who and what it is that you are. fully and completely. And that's the greatest gift you can give yourself. And I'll tell you this, if we want a recipe for finding the perfect soulmate, it's you loving yourself and allowing yourself to be exactly who you are, completely and fully. And as you do so, eventually life will bring you someone who will love you just as you are and who will treat you well. And so, before we're done, I'm going to invite us all to shut down our eyes. And I want us to send great love to the Middle East. Great love to our world leaders. Great peace to calm the drums of war. Great truth for humanity to wake up. To wake up to that which is good, that which is true, that which is beautiful. And so we invite the Divine Mother more fully into our lives, into our heart, inviting her to live through us, to speak through us, to act through us. And we're intentionally taking on this practice of letting go of our limited personal perspective and being the eyes and the ears of God here on planet Earth, sharing our beauty, sharing our light, seeing the beauty and the divinity of all beings. May love triumph. May truth triumph. May peace triumph. So good to be with y'all. Good night, everyone. See you next time.